Oh, hi there. I apologize. Dr. Jones could not be here today. He found himself in a rather tricky situation. So we're going on an adventure today, and every great adventure starts with research. So we'll begin right here in the archives. Indy usually does these talks, so this is my first time presenting, as David said. My name is Bob Lamaster. I'm based in Texas, and I work for Kyndryl in digital workplace services. I've got one dog, one cat, and one wife, which, as I've been told, is the correct number of each. When I'm not here in the archives or out in the field, I've got a few hobbies that keep me busy, and of course, including the Power Platform. Now that you know who I am, let's dive right in. My story is a tale of a recent adventure Indy and I took. The story starts off, like most stories do, with a quest. That quest is to break out of the limitations of the 14 fonts included in Power Apps. The archives had given us a few leads on the location of some ancient wisdom, so off we set on our great adventure. The skies were turbulent, but we made it to the Temple of Locality. It was a curious place filled with stone bookcases and thick with dust. Towards the back of the temple, we came upon a pedestal with a small scroll on top. Upon unrolling it, we were astonished to find it quite legible. It described an ancient practice of using locally installed fonts in Power Apps. We discovered that you can simply write your Power Apps formulas to use any font on your local machine. It was quite simple, really. You could specify the font you wanted, and even a fallback font in case that one wasn't available. Was this the Holy Grail? Alas, we soon discovered that locally installed fonts were a trap. They only work if everyone is using the same operating system, the same device type, and has the same fonts installed. We dodged this giant boulder, and we vowed not to give up so easily. Avoiding that trap, we were off to pursue our next lead. We had heard stories of a mystic language of symbols that could hold the clue of using custom fonts in Power Apps. So Dr. Jones and I set off again on the next leg of our journey. This site was even more difficult to locate. Eventually, deep in the jungle, we found the Temple of Glyphs, covered from top to bottom in strange symbols. Rumor had it that this temple contained the secret of an arcane language called Base 64 or something like that could encode fonts directly inside Power Apps. On a rickety shelf carved into a wall, we discovered the scroll we were looking for, but the language was strange and confusing at first. After Indy translated it, we saw a complicated process of font download, conversion, formula manipulation, and image injection. It really looked like some childhood gibberish. Even after Indy translated it, it made my head hurt just to look at it. But again, it was a trap. While the fonts would be visible on all operating systems and devices, such a complicated process wasn't scalable, especially because it added significant bloat to our apps. So what now? Just when we had thought we had found a solution. There must be a real way to get external fonts into Power Apps. There was only one more lead to pursue. Although we were getting weary from our journey, we boarded the twin prop and set out again. As we approached our final stop, a golden glow shimmered in the distance. We pulled in closer and discovered a breathtaking cache of precious gems and gleaming gold. I was flabbergasted. Indy, though, he was completely unfazed. He was staring past the treasure and at the wall behind it. And there it was. Etched into the stone in ancient pixel-perfect lettering, it said, "Make a PCF control, but don't embed your fonts." Wait, what? But then we heard a whisper from the shadows, and it said, "Use the font loader." I thought, huh? What's a font loader? And who's that whispering like the last surviving web developer from MySpace? Just then the ground trembled. A small box rose from the earth at our feet. Indy opened it slowly, and inside was a single scroll. Upon the scroll, we discovered the Holy Grail. Okay, maybe not the Holy Grail, because Indy had already found that, but this was a close second. The voice had said not to embed or include the fonts we needed in PCF controls, and it said something cryptic about a thing called the font loader. I still wasn't getting it, but Indy seemed to understand. I must have been a little dense, so Indy broke it down for me. PCF controls are always the solution if you need to extend the native capabilities of Power Apps. Unfortunately, even in PCF controls, Power Apps won't include any fonts you try to bundle. That's a restriction both in Webpack, which PCF scripts uses a custom version of, and even if you override Webpack, Power Apps will still ignore those fonts. It won't even put them into the blob storage of your application. But you can get past this whole thing with a simple key, and that is to load the fonts at runtime. He explained that the font loader as a module fetches fonts at runtime. In other words, your fonts aren't even in your app until the page loads. As a control, the font loader can be used by makers in the place of text or label controls whenever custom text is needed without bloating their page code. And then, of course, as we're here for, I'm going to show you a demo. But shield your eyes. It could be like the Ark of the Covenant. Only the worthy should gaze upon it. So let's take a look. So I'm going to show you two versions of the control. The first one is an interactive one that you actually fill out the parameters right while the app is running. And to do that, we'll just do a quick sample here. Now this font loader can use Google Fonts or it can use a CDN. But I need a font name. This is actually the font family name. So if I go to Google, if I get a font family name, like let's take Story Script, I just want to look for this line that says font family and copy that and put it right in here where it says font name. Now I don't need a CDN because I'm not using my own CDN. Let's skip the text for a second, go to font size 40 and font weight 400 is a good one. And I can left justify it, center it right. I can even supply a color. But let's type in some text. And you can see that font is immediately rendered with whatever font family that I've put in here and the other parameters. So this is all great, but you don't want all these fields if you go to use this on your maker canvas. So here's a clean control. You can see here by simply supplying the parameters through the maker portal, just like you would for any other control, you can get custom text. And for those of you who are into making PCF kind of things, which is not for everybody, it's rather straightforward to use the module. You simply import it, and then you provide the parameters, and you call the module, just load font with the config that is defined above, and it will return back the CSS code for using that font, and that is simply appended right to the text that you want to use it in. So it's all fairly straightforward. All right, so where can you get the font loader? You'll find it right here. Whether you're looking for a simple control to use in the maker canvas, or you want to use the font loader to develop your own PCF controls, you'll find it at that GitHub address. And everybody needs a little help from time to time, so let's roll the credits. First of all, a huge shout out to a gentleman named Eichel Mendoza, who demonstrated this method at a C# conference. Without that, I wouldn't have been able to make the font loader. Secondly, I want to acknowledge Copilot. I am not a coder, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without being able to bounce ideas off of Copilot. If you haven't tried using Copilot for code, it'll save you a lot of time doing the initial grunt work and the debugging. So with that, I wish you good fortunes, and it's off to the next adventure.